Hey, it's TDA, and welcome to episode 8 of this Super Proliferation run. And today we have some problem solving to do, because as you can see, we are going to be running low on belts. Why are we running low on belts? Well, we actually don't have graphene incoming. And someone actually pointed this out in the comments in one of the previous episodes, that we've built graphene in order to supply most of our facilities, but it's actually being mostly consumed by our proliferation. And that is, of course, not necessarily a bad thing, because we want to be proliferating everything, but we need some surplus graphene as well in order to make belts. Now, we can probably temporarily fix that by reducing the load of the vessels. So this means that if we put this to the lowest, graphene being produced will initially go to this station, at least it should be. But still, that's not really an effective way to solve this long term. So in order to fix our graphene production, we're going to hop back to our starting planet. And as you can see, if you reduce the load, this gets priority. But of course, now the rest of our facilities won't be getting it. So let's hop to the other planet and fix our graphene production. And here we are. As you can see, nothing really wrong with our graphene build. It's working like intended, it's fully functional, so we are actually getting our graphene from this build. The only problem is it is not enough. And what is also probably not going to be enough is the acid production. I think we're currently fine, because we have been producing it since forever, but as you can see, it's slowly going down, so I have a feeling it won't be able to keep up for too long. And because of that, what we are going to do is we are going to make sure we are optimizing our graphene, acid, as well as oil production. Because as you can see, even though this acid production has been completely upgraded, it's not fully functional, even though it's proliferated, etc. That's just because there's not enough oil coming in. Because our earlier oil build, even though it's a pretty decent build, is simply not enough to keep up with the production. So let's go fix that, shall we? Okay, I am now on the side of the planet that has all our oil, apparently, because as you can see, we have this nice little open space next to where we initially started out. That gives us a lot of room to build stuff. But yeah, all the oil is on this side, and we have a nice little area of building space over here. I increased it slightly to put up our oil facility. Now, to start out with the oil, I'm just gonna copy paste down our very ugly, well, at least the blueprint is very ugly, oil facility. Now this has a few problems, because of course this uses Mark 1 belts, which we don't want to use anymore. So if you use the mass upgrade button and you press shift while you do that, you can easily upgrade all the belts. Like this. We shouldn't have missed any, I think. Nope. And then the second thing we want to do is also upgrade the sorters, because of course we are using Mark 3 sorters by now. There we go. That should take care of that. And then what else? Well, a few things. So we are going to be removing this ugly belt, which was for the proliferation. We are actually going to take out the middle belt, I think. Should we? Yeah, I think so, because we don't really need it at this point. So we are going to take that out. We are also going to take out these little thingies, because they don't fit anymore. And there's different ways in which you can upgrade these builds, of course. Depends a little bit on your preference. I just like doing it like this, kind of reusing what we've already had. I am going to take out this part for a bit, because it will get in the way otherwise. That also holds for this, I think. Actually, does it? Does it? Can we place these so close? Nope. Okay. So that does mean I actually need to take out the towers. Okay, so now we've done that. And what we are going to do now is we are going to take this build, the bottom half at least, say use now. Then we are going to mass remove this. And then we are, this one, we are going to paste in the build once again. And then of course we do need to make sure it's aligned. There we go. And now we've moved everything up one bit. Now we do of course need to make sure we fix those sorters that we just removed. But before we do that, I am going to take one more slight alteration to this build. And what I'm going to do, I am going to copy this part. Actually, I'm going to copy the entire thing, I think. Yeah, there we go. And we're going to flip that around. And we're just going to put it here for a moment. And I am gonna make sure we actually build this, and then we'll meet back to further optimize this. Okay, so while the remainder of the bottom half is being completed, what we want to do is kind of prepare the top half to fit into the bottom half. And it's kind of misaligned at the moment, but we will be kind of moving it a little bit. So what we need to do is we are going to have to remove this belt, because this belt is not going anywhere. And in order to connect the sorters, we're going to have to place a temporary belt for a moment over there. We are going to output on this belt, and now that will kind of fit in next to this one. We are also going to have to remove the right half of these belts so we can fit those in with the ones below, and that means we need to do this. And then we need to repeat that process a few times in order for us to actually be able to fit everything together. So let me do it quite quickly. It doesn't take too much work, as you can see. It's pretty straightforward. And there we go. Just a few to go. And then we need the sorter. And remember to set the filters on your sorters, because of course you are getting both hydrogen as well as refined oil from these facilities. And you don't want those to mix. And then finally we are going to completely take this one out as well and put in a new belt for the refined oil over here, and then let's one of those like that. Now we can actually completely remove this belt because we want it to move in the other direction, but this one already is. And then of course we do need to make sure we are removing the sorters from the bottom half, because otherwise we'll have the same problem, but then on the bottom with it colliding with each other. So we're going to remove the left half from this. I really like doing like these upgraded builds. It's kind of making use of what you've already done before. I kind of like the layout of this build. Is it 100% optimal? It's probably pretty close, to be honest, because if you want a symmetric build, you can't really have everything outputting on the same belt. So let's make sure we remove that one, and then I think we're almost done. And there we go. Alrighty, I think that should pretty much be it. So now if we go and we blueprint this for a moment, and you can just use the use now button, but I've been burned by that a few times when I remove this, because we do have to remove this. And then I accidentally pushed the wrong button, and then I didn't have my blueprint anymore. So this should fit, I believe. Yeah. There we go. Now I'm also going to remove the direction of this belt. Or reverse, I should say, not remove. Why? Because we want our output to go in this direction. Now that does mean we need to connect the hydrogen belts while we're at it. There we go. Hydrogen, hydrogen, more hydrogen, more hydrogen. There we go. That also means that we have an oil belt here that we can connect like this. And oh, we do need to make sure this is actually connected up. There we go. And we can go in one of either two directions. So we can either connect this up from this side, but what I actually prefer doing is reverse the order of this belt as well, or not order, direction. There we go. Not sure why my mind keeps going to that word. Anyway, this is the oil belt. Let's put that there for a moment. And then we have the hydrogen belt over here. And then of course we do need to make sure we are connecting that up once more. There we go. How are we direction on this belt? This looks just fine. Now, we do need to make sure we are leaving some room for ourselves to proliferate stuff. And we are going to have to do that somewhere over here. Because we have hydrogen and oil coming out. We have the same happening over here. And then we have the same happening over here. Now, I do hope I actually have... Oh, I have 92 on me. That should be enough. Can we move this in a little bit? Not too far, actually, because otherwise we'll get into an issue with these sorters. And remember, these are just as bad as chemical facilities sometimes with clipping. And that means we should put it on this line. There we go. We can make these belts a little shorter, I think. There we go. And then all we need to do is put down an ILS. Like so. And remember, we are going to have to put in raw oil. We are going to receive this and we are going to receive this. And that means we have enough room for the proliferators. For which we actually are going to need quite a bit. So let's start requesting those. And we are going to leave room for warpers, which we don't have access to, but we might as well make sure we don't have to revisit this build any more often than we need to. And then last but not least, we are going to connect these belts. So these are the incoming belts. And this is our outgoing belts for the oil. There we go. I am going to clean up these memos, which are now saying 6 is enough, which it definitely is not. Depends a bit on how you want to do it, actually, because you could argue that you might want to have this symmetric and have an outgoing belt there as well, with 2 incoming belts. The only problem with that is, well, there's not really a problem necessarily with that. But you do need all the slots on this side, because remember we have incoming belts from hydrogen and oil on this side as well. If you're really desperate, you can kind of flip that around. But what I am actually going to do is something that will still be somewhat symmetric. Although not completely, because we also need the proliferator. And the proliferator is going to come out like this. Like that. And then that's going to wrap around like so. Now we have all the inputs being proliferated as well as the outputs. Now, we do need to clean up this build a little bit. We need to put in some foundations, and then we need to supply it with a large amount of refined oil, 24 per second to be exact. So let's make sure we do that, and then let's see how it works. Okay, so we hooked up most of the oil on our planet now. So I actually put down an ILS to make sure that if for whatever reason we also want this oil to go somewhere else, we can actually transport it there. I actually forgot that I also put in some stone production, which happened to be over there. So I figured, well, while I'm at it, let's do that. Similarly, over here we have an ILS that is getting inputs from some stone and 3 of these oil production centers. So we can now supply that to wherever we want in the universe. Now, the belts, of course, also go to our oil facility, all of them. And I do recommend being a bit minimalistic in how many drones you use, because belts don't cost any energy. So it depends a little bit. Sometimes it makes sense to use drones, sometimes it makes sense to use belts, but especially for raw resource, because of the amount going in, I typically suggest that you use this. Now, there we go. We have it going into our facilities, and let's see if it's working like intended. And as you can see, yeah, we are now getting in our oil, we are getting in hydrogen from both sides, so that is going just fine. Oh, wait, we actually forgot to put in the sorters in the middle, so yeah. Okay, there we go. As you can see, I hooked up all the oil in the neighborhoods. I actually also made sure I put an ILS in between. So we can, if there's ever any moment where we have more oil than we are actually processing there, we can transport it to other places in the universe as well. There happen to be some stone nearby, so yeah, I just put that in as well. And then similarly over here, closer to where our other production areas are that we created in the last few episodes, we also have some oil and some stone. So actually forgot to put in the stone over here, so let's fix that. So we tapped into all of that. Now, I didn't actually hook it up to our facility just yet, so let's see if that is working. It should be, because of course we put a lot of thought in that. So oil goes in, oil comes out. These facilities are now all starting up. And we should be seeing our oil and hydrogen coming in really soon now. Just let's make sure it actually goes all the way around. As you can see, it's now wrapping around over here. And there we also see our inputs and outputs going on the correct belts. Honestly, the belts itself don't really matter that much anymore when you're going to put them in an ILS anyway. But we might as well make it look nice, shouldn't we? Yeah, I think we do. Okay, we have everything being proliferated, so that is also working like intended. And now there's only one more thing to maybe sort of fix, because currently we are not doing anything with our hydrogen, which we will be fixing quite soon. But that could mean that once this is full, and this only takes in 10,000, and yes, that is only 10,000 because that will stock up really fast. What we want to do is make sure that we have a place for all that hydrogen to go. And it's really simple to do that actually, but I'll show you just in case you don't know. You can just stack up a couple of these storage facilities somewhere outside of your build. This is just a temporary fix, but well, it's permanent fix to a point, but you don't need to do this in the future builds once we actually are using the hydrogen. But you can output the hydrogen. Let's do that over here actually. Okay, fine. We'll start from the other side. There we go. We are going to go over here, over there. Let's make this a mini bridge as always, because I like those. And then this one goes in here, this one goes in there. So this will actually not stock up in here because it can go out right away as well. Same here and same here. And then we go back in again. Now, what does this do? This actually doesn't do anything as long as we don't have the ILS completely filled up. But once it is, this will export it at 30 per second and import it at 30 per second. So this is kind of neutral, but as soon as this is stocked up, this will actually, this incoming belt won't be able to go in anymore. This outgoing belt will still be able to go out because we can now buffer in the storage facilities. So this is a way to make sure that basically we've now increased the storage capacity of this ILS for hydrogen with 20,000 hydrogen. So that should be more than enough for the moment. By the time this is actually full, we should be using hydrogen as well. And of course, that's also nice because now we have a huge stockpile of hydrogen to actually use up. All right, so now we have the oil fixed. So now let's focus on the graphene as well as the graphite and acid, because those are the other things that we, while we're here, might as well make sure that we have up and running. Okay, so this is not the most interesting build, but I'm just showing you for sake of being complete. We have a little graphite build over here next to the place where we actually have a huge amount of coal supply. Now, once again, I do recommend that you belt this in when you can. There's no reason to start having drones supply you with 30 coal per second if you can also just put it on a belt, especially if it's this close distance. But yeah, we are going to need graphite elsewhere in our universe as well, and this is going to supply us a full belt of it with Mark III proliferation, so this should take care of most of that. Now, we have also built a little bit of more high-tech stuff over here next to where our mall still is. Now we have a nice little acid facility over here. Don't forget that you also need water, and a little trick I use, especially on this planet where I happen to have water close by pretty much everywhere, is that I just built in the water, of course, once again, but I also set the build to supply the water remotely, because this is going to draw in a lot more water than this build is actually using. The default setting in the blueprint, by the way, will be for it to request water, because I don't know where you're building it, and if you're building it on a planet where you don't have water, you will want to request it. But if you switch things like this, you can kind of make the most out of your ILSs whenever you can. As you can see, we are getting a little bit low on power because I just built a few things. But yeah, all in all, this build is working pretty nicely. Actually, it is not. Why is this top row? Oh, this top row is working. I was slightly worried there for a moment. It's just low on power, that's why the belt was empty. So yeah, we will need to fix the power, but I will do that in between episodes. But as you can see, we also now have a nice amount of acid going into 2 graphene builds. These are the identical builds that we've done before. I just copy and pasted them, and because it only has an ILS at the end, you can kind of alternate them if you want. You can even build more than 2. I just went for 2 because I think this will be more than enough for now. As you can see, I am using drones to supply the assets. I should probably build just a little bit of a belt in here in order to make that automatic, but for now this will do. Okay, so now we've made a huge oil build that will provide us with all the oil that we need for a long time. We have acid, we have graphite, and we have graphene production all up and running. So hopefully we should now see that our Mark III belts are in fact up and running once again. And we are back on our mole planet. And now, of course, I do need to find which one actually has the Mark III belts. It's one of these. Hello? Yeah. And as you can see, partially helped by the fact that we put the graphene on a low amount, but as you can see, the graphene is now coming in really rapidly. But we're not actually using the graphene anymore because we actually have 10,000 belts waiting for us. Now, belts are, of course, one of the most important things to have. Without belts, you can't expand your base. So, yeah, this obviously fixed the problem. And as soon as we fix the power on the other planet, we should have that graphene production up and running for the foreseeable future. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will catch you in the next one, where we will focus on getting a few new items.